Good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to this second unit of Retail Management Program, Block 1. Unlike last time where we got a sneak peek into the overview of retail, today we are going to talk about the concepts related to the retail industry. We will talk about something about the wheel of retailing, coming on to the retail formats, how do we look into the store operations and look into the various aspects of store management and different formats of retailing as available to us. So just to take you through that, if you remember, yes, when we talked in unit one, we talked about the consumer or the customer behavioral aspect of retailing and why that should be an important concern for all of us. If you look into the consumer behavior, we always change. You'll find that the demographic profiling, if you take across the age groups or even in case of occupation, there's been a sea change which has happened in India. If you look into the demographic profile of India, we are a young country, but at the same time, we also have formidable people who are of the Gen X and the millennials and the Gen Zs. So if you see into their lifestyles and the way they have evolved over a period of time, they have also been able to adopt new retail formats as they are made available by the various retail outlets or the retail marketers. As you know, this retailing deals with the last contact or the last mile to connect with the customers. So hence it becomes important as to how do we reach out to them, when do we reach out to them, in what ways can we reach out to them. So if you look into the current scenario, the typical nature of a customer is they are exposed to some of the most uh, recent trends in, let's say, the digital revolution. So, have they adopted the digital revolution into their lifestyle? Perhaps yes. The use of social media, looking into the online formats, and the way they are purchasing on the online formats. But at the same time, they are also visiting the offline formats. So, that tells us that today's consumer has in their shopping behavior, in their decision making, when they are going to the retail outlets, they have changed. If you look into the personal, the socio-economic structure of the Indian society, if you say the SEC, uh, we have a kind of a blown up kind of a middle class. Our middle class is very, very large in numbers. We can further stratify them into an upper middle class, lower middle class. The kind of behavioral characteristics that these people show is also very significant of their lifestyles. A sneak peek into them could be like, today they are far more aware of what is happening across the world, and of course their expectations are increasing. They're ready to experiment. They're utilizing technology to reach out to go for their research as far as product category research is concerned. So they are a different lot when we talk about it. But we also have in the marketplace people who are in the 90s, let's say. They are still in the marketplace. That is the next, which we call them. These are the people who would like to go to, let's say, an offline like Kirana store for purchases, which may not be a significant thing for a Gen Z or a millennial today. They would like to go to the retail outlets which are offline available, the Kirana stores, and that has become a very interesting part of their engagement with the society. Perhaps the mom and pop store or the Kirana store owner, if you remember, they have some kind of a relationship which they built, and it's not just purchasing products or services. It is much more than that, and that also talks about the kind of patronage that these customers have towards those retail outlets, and it's a very strong connect to come out of it. But with passage of time, when you are moving out of that region, you're going to other parts because of your occupation requirements. Obviously, you start looking at what could be the proximities, how close it is, and the offline formats now get also substituted by the online formats which are made available. So if you talk about today's marketers, they have to juggle between the omni-channel options that is left to them in order to attend to the consumers because of these changes. So if you look into the omni-channel options, we talk in terms of both being made available on the online format as well as in the offline format. So this is some of the changes, and this is something which is going to stay forever because change is the only constant in the world. So obviously, consumers will get exposed to new stuff, new avenues, innovated marketing strategies by the companies. So from a retailing perspective, also, how do you reach out to them? How do you make that experience a phenomenal experience? Or that's something which we talk in terms of the retail therapy. If you see today's outlets, the retail chains that we talk about, there are upmarket retail outlets where you would talk in terms of creating an atmosphere where the customer would love to be there or would like to go there, spend some time, and a lot of things that goes into planning, creating the a perfect environment, which we call as the service scape, and you provide that to the customers. So obviously, retailing has become more of service oriented. So when you talk about the dimensions of services, have also started encroaching into the way the retail formats have to be curated to the end consumers. Let's move into another very important theory of retailing. When we talk about theory of retailing, we must look into the kind of uh, phases of development of a retail structure. Today, when companies start off into the retailing business, obviously, as you know, they try to start at a very, very basic level, looking into the requirements of the people and looking into the utilitarian needs of the people. But as time passes, there is also a necessity of how the customers who flow into them, who have footfalls, who come into them, and they interact more. There is a growth pattern that they see. So they also try to leverage on that by showcasing more products, trying to increase the space, trying to utilize the space in the retail space, and try to adhere to the requirements of the customers. Going forward, they would also stabilize because if you see the growth patterns, they would like to also not only be available in one geographical location, but would like to branch out to other locations. To give you an example, Cafe Coffee Day, which starts off with maybe with one outlet, they would branch out into multiple outlets in a given city because obviously let's say in a city like Kolkata or Mumbai, where there's a huge population, you need to provide multiple outlets to cater to the customers. So for that, they need to stabilize and compete in that space. And as you go on, you need to include technology. You have to make that particular outlet an engaging, point where a touch point which people would love to go there, would love to interact and love to spend time. So looking at that, the wheel of retailing is a conceptual model, but then this is what most of the retailers are offering. Maybe they start off with very low cost and low margin products initially, but as they go on, they have to diversify. Please understand one thing: retail is a very, very is a mega in terms of costs. It's a very expensive in terms of operating the retailing formats. So obviously, as you grow from an entry to the growth to a stabilized to a competing stages of the wheel of retailing, the kind of involvement that the retailer has to do in order to ensure the customer engages with them at multiple levels have to be properly planned out at a massive level. If you go forward to the, let's now move to the, okay, if this is what the scenario is, what could be the possible retailer landscape, as I would call it? Can we classify them? So where you can classify them under various categories. First, we can look into the classification on the basis of the independent stores which are there on the basis of their ownership. You will find that most of the mom and pop stores, which the Kirana stores that we are talking about, which dominates the Indian retail scenario, they are mostly independent stores. They are proprietary stores. Like somebody starts it and then it is passed on to their family, to their kids, and so on and so forth. And that is almost like 88% of the retail scale. And please understand when we say this, It is something which we cannot ignore. Though we do not like to go there, or may not, today's Gen Zs do not like to go there, but their existence is of paramount importance to any marketer in order to penetrate the market and to reach out to the consumers, because that is the benchmark of any uh, good distribution system. And independent stores definitely give you that penetration in the marketplace for any company. So the next comes in the ownership are the chain stores, which you have across the cities, which I was just mentioning that, okay, you start off with one place, then slowly you would like to expand your market and increase your capacity, and you move into the other geographical location, increasing your footprints. And when you do that, obviously, you will not just get into a random selection of cities and towns. Something needs to be vetted out. So when you talk about retail chains, like McDonald's will not come to any city just like that. They would look into the kind of market size that is there, what kind of habits do people have, what kind of a lifestyle they have, what kind of a spend do they do. So all these parameters have to be researched out well before you make an entry. So retail chain stores, yes, is a reality today. It is increasing by the day. As you move into, mostly they are visible in the tier one cities of India, and they're now getting into tier two and tier three cities of India as well, and making their brand more visible in the space. Next, we move into something called the leased departmental stores. You see, some of the stores which are bigger stores, they are having good space. So, what would companies like to do? They would like to take one particular department of them and then establish their. They take it on a lease for a particular period of time, and they establish their presence there, and they would pay for that space. So that's how it is leased out. The next format would be, when in terms of ownership, would be that where you are a big name and you want to reach out, and you want to reach out fast to the consumers, then you can go through a franchising model. In this case, as you know, the franchising would do the business in the name of the major franchisor, and would pay a royalty towards it. So you will have mostly the single branded utility, outlets, something like your ice creams and all that. They could come under this category. Even your cafe coffee, they can get into franchising. Starbucks can get into franchising. Domino's can get into franchising. The one thing one has to look into is that the parent company in whose name that particular outlet is being floated should essentially follow the guidelines of the company without, creating an identity or a dilution of the brand, uh, in terms of what kind of products they are providing. They cannot go beyond the other products which the franchisor is providing. So there are certain limitations in that. But then this is again a very, very interesting concept that you see, where you are increasing your footprints in a geographical market, and you do a faster expansion. So from a marketing perspective, it gives you a very strong growth strategy in terms of market penetration. Looking into the other system, which I call vertical marketing system, where the company would like to be a part of a well established network and try to take a stake by providing better products, better, at better price points, and giving a luxury of giving the merchandise width to the customers. So thereby you can play a role in that particular market and help establishing a foothold in that particular market. Not a very, very practiced kind of a thing, but yes, it is a system which exists. So these are the formats based on the ownership part. Next, we look into the formats which are generated on the basis of the merchandise. When you say merchandise, what kind of products and services that they are offering? So broadly, if you see, the food and beverages is one of the most dominant product category when you talk in terms of store formats. So under food, for food oriented, there are certain classifications that you can have a look at in terms of store formats. The first thing that comes into our mind is the convenience stores. These are typical convenience stores, which are the mom and pop stores, which I talked about, which are available close to the residential areas. And India, they are mostly known as the kirana stores. If you see in terms of the space, they may not be that big, but they would try to stock those products which the vicinity area or the where the catchment area is what they want. So if you see in terms of their assortments, they may buy bit of everything that the people in that surrounding area are looking forward to. That is why it is called convenience stores. And these stores give you maximum penetration because if you see in India, you go into any particular lane in the residential areas, you have some houses where the basement would be turned into a kind of a convenience stores. So that gives you a lot of penetration. So in a given street, there could be multiple convenience stores, and these people, if you remember when I started the session today, they enjoy what we call as the customer relationship management to the maximum. They actually practice it in may not be in so many structured way, but they are able to hold on or what we call as customer retention. They're able to retain their customers by giving that particular personal touch when they come and buy from these outlets. So convenience stores are a major part of the food-oriented formats in this country, and something which people have to look forward to as a company, as a company also, as well as from the customer's perspective. Supermarkets are slightly bigger than the convenience stores. They would be very much located. They are very location specific, so people would know by certain supermarkets where they are coming at. They are located at a very convenient place where people can go and can buy, but they differ from the convenience stores by the fact that they offer a larger assortment uh, to the customers. And mostly they stock the daily food products and the daily consumable items that which we call as the staples. So obviously that is a very, very important part of their merchandise. Looking into box stores are basically the discount stores. Again, they can be very strongly visible in the marketplace, like your convenience stores, but they can also be very catering to the diverse needs of the people in terms of food, as well as if you talk about DMart, not only they're looking into food, but they're also gone into other materials which are required for consumption on a daily basis. So they're very discount oriented. So the if you see that the consumer offtake is very high, and the shelves, the way the store is planned is that you have a very effective inventory system, which we will talk about later, so that the store is able to cater to the, because discount is something which Indians, it's a kind of a call to action. So they fall is easy prey to that. So when you get these discount stores, you have to ensure that you also have sufficient amount of stocks available. So inventory management also have to come in. And DMart is a classic example of where they've been able to really been able to make inroads in Gujarat as well as in Maharashtra. Now they are increasing their footprints across. If you see the wheel of retailing, they've been able to grow, and now they are stabilizing and they are competing with the big players in other markets. The next part of the store format is the hypermarkets. Hypermarkets are huge. They are big. Again, in terms of compared to supermarkets or convenience stores, they are available. If you see, they are available at strategic locations in the cities or towns. And for example, if you find there's a commercial district, for example, if you want to go to Karol Bagh area, or if you talk in terms of in Mumbai, you'll find that you have the Bandra, or you have the Andheri. So they would take up places on the east or west, closer to places where they would be, closer to the metros or to the, so where people footfalls would be higher, and people come and purchase in larger amounts. Maybe they're going for the weekly purchases, or where they're going for their fortnight purchases, depending on that. But here the footfalls are extremely high, and these people keep on giving a lot of incentives for the people to buy. So they are a big ticket kind of a player in the marketplace, and giving customers more choices, more assortment, more variety, but under the roof of giving also a kind of a convenient environment where they could purchase. And so obviously they would engage with the customers in terms of the atmospherics. Then comes the general merchandise. The general merchandise mostly would be related to consumer durables or the apparels or jewelries, right? Those kind of things. So when we look into the general merchandise, the first thing that comes to our mind are the departmental stores. Departmental stores, they are, they're very huge. They also have a good assortment like hypermarkets, and they cater to the diverse requirements and mostly may not be utilitarian, but something which would be like things of little bit of luxury maybe. And these stores would also have very good category classifications. When we talk about category management, they have a good category management in the departmental stores. So you'll have certain sections dedicated to jewelry, something related to apparels, could be talking in terms of electronic goods and so on and so forth. So it's a well laid out, and department stores do attract a lot of footfalls. Next, we move into the branded outlets. People who visit outlets for the brands that they are. So, if you talk about the single branded outlets, these are exclusive brand outlets where people are already made up their mind. That, for example, if I'm going to a Sony store, I know that I'm going to buy Sony. If I'm going to an LG, I'm going to do that. If I'm going to Zara, if I'm going to, let's say, some kind of Adidas or whatever. So these exclusive branded outlets or the jewelry outlets for that matter, these are exclusive and generally they pitch slightly different from the other formats in the sense like they look into they open up, they don't open up in every nook and corner like the other formats. They would open up at places where their target audience whom they are targeting, they are placed. So it's very important that they would come up in posh localities. Or if you talk about an area which is known for exclusive purchases, they would open their stores there. Of course, they could come up at very significant, like something like you want to say in terms of when you talk about Delhi, you could be looking into the various marquee places in Delhi. So, Connaught Place, for example, if you want to be there, obviously it is going to be expensive. In terms of, as I told you, if you want a good location at a good place and at a upmarket place, you have to pay for it. So exclusive brand outlets, the people who are into it, the companies which are into it, they would have to open their outlets where their target audiences are. It could be very, very chic in a very posh locality. It could be in a five-star hotel, maybe sometimes, open up a small area in the, if you remember the vertical marketing systems which I was talking about, you could open up stores within the airports or whatever so that you get exclusivity in terms of what you are offering. Multi-branded outlets are another part of your general merchandise where, as the name suggests, you are not only storing a particular brand, but you're also giving a choice of brands. In exclusive brand outlets, you had only access to maybe one single brand which has opened up. But they also classify. For example, if you talk about like the footwear, Bata caters to a value for proposition, value for money kind of customers. So they would look into low penetration or low value products. But if you look into Hush Puppies, which is a premium brand, so they would open up exclusive brands. But in case they're exclusive brands, but in two separate formats. The visitor to a Hush Puppy may not be going to, so they want to signify by that. But in some stores, you find that they are clubbed together also. So that is something to do with branded outlets. Multi-branded outlets, on the other hand, let's you go to the Metro Shoes, right? Very well-known outlets, but they give the whole lot of brands which is available. They get to give it to Zara's, they give to Jimmy Choo's, maybe Jimmy Choo would be quite high, but definitely they would give you assortment of various brands. Many a times these outlets also you will find that there's a presence of something called a private level brands. Private level brands are like that where a retailer, the person who has opened up could be branding their own product looking into their vendors. They would select out their own vendors and brand them and put them there. So these brands, these private label brands are available exclusively on those stores and they do fight the manufacturer brands in those outlets. So multi-branded outlets again have a very big footfall than the others, and not necessarily that they are going to offer only one particular product. So they're giving a kind of a choice, a brand choice to the customers. So the customers come in larger numbers. The footfalls in such kind of outlets are also high. If you look into the other formats, we look into the store-based or non-store-based retailing outlets in India, right? And cash and carry formats. Cash and carry is something like a B2B. If you see the FDI guidelines in India, the retailers were allowed to enter in the cash and carry, which means what? They were catering to huge requirements of the retailers across. So it is like a wholesaling in retail, you can in the retail sector. So what they would do, they would believe that it's a B2B, it's a typical B2B connect, where you deal in larger amounts. So the small retailers would go and buy out from them in some larger quantities and then go out to sell it to the other customers across the markets. So cash and carry has also found its root in India, where the big players have already started moving in, of the likes of the Walmarts and all that. So you will find that something like a Target would like to be here, or more from Germany would like to open their cash and carry kind of a outlet here. Apart from that, there are non-store retailing. Non-store retailing is not something which has been, as the name suggests, do not have a physical existence of a store. Uh, Under that, you have the online format also, but today's, if you look into it, online formats, has overtaken the offline format. So, non-store retailing is something like catalog marketing, the Amways and if we talk in terms of Modicare, Herbalife, Oriflame. These are some of the brands which have explored the possibility of non-store retailing in India, and that's one another way of connecting. So there's an effort by the retailer to go to customers personally and then connect with them and to sell them. They have a chain system. They have a multi-level chain. So through the chain, they manage to get more number of purchases. So that's how the market shares increase. Apart from that, you also have catalogs. People go, you get a catalog, you get a reference point, and then you can place the order there. Nowadays, that has been substituted mostly by the online. Today, when you talk about the online system, they have been able to cater to the without the presence of a physical store, they've been able to adhere to the requirements of the market. So that's a big catch here in terms of the online interface, in terms of non-store retailing. Apart from that, you have got something like you have an ATM. Of course, not very common in India, maybe restricted to certain tier one cities. You will find like you have the automatic vending machines selling cokes, for example, or you can get chips, those kind of things at strategic locations, something like a railway station or a commercial district, or in a marketplace, right? That's where you would like to make it available. Apart from that, there could be certain kiosks which could be used in non-store retailing. Like you could put up kiosks at strategic locations, let's say in an airport or a five-star hotel. A retailer would put all the information regarding their what their products and services are, and you can place an order, and that could be delivered at your doorstep. So that is something which is also there. But again, not very commonly available in India, but the point is, it is a possibility that you can experience as we go. And as we move on, you will find that in all this, whether it is a store or a non-store, uh, we were talking, if you remember in Unit 1, the various retail formats, the brick and the mortar, which is basically an offline format, which is a physical store being made available, is going to be there. On the other hand, you have a click strategy or a click model of retailing where everything is done on the online space. But having said that, when you look into the value chain of such retailers, they have to look into the entire gamut of not only procuring, providing it. They have a complete logistic support where they could get into a strategic alliance with various partners or develop their own capabilities on that. So you will find that in India, both of these are existing in the market because the Indian consumer has been very, very, you can say, they would like to evaluate things on an offline thing and then get back to buying on a on the, sorry, if they would like to go and see it in the offline space, get a touch and feel, and then compare on the online space and make a purchase. They could purchase it mostly from the online space because they would get a lot of discounts there. So Indian consumers are very finicky in terms of the value proposition that they are getting in terms of price offs. So if that is the thing, it means that for retailers, they have to provide both opportunities in the marketplace so that they can leverage on the changing the way the person uh, accesses these outlets and uses them for taking purchase decisions. So something which is merged into both a brick and mortar and click, and we call that a brick and a click model of retailing, which leverages on the benefits of an online as well as an offline. What does it do to the consumer? Obviously, it gives a lot of flexibility, a lot of comfort to the customer, because today's customer sitting at home can also place orders, right? But if they want to get a touch and feel of that, they can go to those offline stores and can check it out, what the product is, and suit according to their requirements, and then make a purchase. Today's, if you see, I was talking about Pepper Fry in the last session. Pepper Fry has very beautifully have been able to blend both the offline and the online retailing to reach out to their customers. What they have done, they know that most of the products which they are manufacturing or they are providing, they are into the DIY. So most of the people if you look in the consumer habits, they are not very clearly could not adopt the DIY model. So obviously people had to come, install. So lot many issues did come into play. So again, we must understand one thing, that having those concepts is fine, but how does it really get translated at a ground level will result in that particular model being acceptable, making a success out of it. Otherwise, it may just vanish. It may not be effective. So, if you take a leaf out of what IKEA does, IKEA is also has a very minimal kind of a merchandise which is showcased, because they believe in one thing, that it is a mandatory. They rather ensure that the person goes to the outlet, gets involved in creating that at a lowest possible cost. For example, if I want a closet at a particular price point, I could go and sit with them and can create that and can make it happen. But for that to happen, you need to have that kind of an infrastructure or that kind of a capability to cater to a very customized kind of a approach, which is not so easy to achieve. And if you look at the cost factor, the cost to customer acquisition is also very high. So that makes this particular DIY concept slightly less. But then it as a concept, it is already there. If you look into a customized furniture carpenter who does the furnitures for you, obviously he's going to charge you for his labor. The jewelry, for example, before jewelry got branded, you always had people, the yesteryears, if you see your grandparents, they rely mostly on the guy who would come to your house with a catalog. We'll be talking about non-store retailing, we'll talk about catalog marketing. They go through it and then place the order. And that was the kind of a showrooming that they did, which is very, very important part of the purchase behavior. But with the online kind of a thing, we are getting, instead of showrooming, we are getting into web rooming. So most of the customers today, you will find that today retail is, when we talk about a concept called retail therapy, um, shopping has been considered to be a kind of elevating people, making them people happy, motivating them in a happy quotient. So it's almost like a therapy. So shopping behavior, that's where the online shopping is headed towards. That earlier they used to give a lot of information according to the requirements of the customer. So as a process, web rooming was something which has happened significantly And with the penetration of, as I was telling you yesterday, that the penetration of internet and use of smartphones, which has gone not only in the urban centers but beyond urban centers to the rural areas, the internet. So, if that is the kind of a reach that you're talking about, look at the tremendous potential that you have, but in terms of when people are spending time in evaluating. So, for marketers and basically the content creators who are on this space, they have to think about their digital communication strategies, how to effectively use the web roaming characteristics that customers exhibit in order to make the, the click strategies work. So, and it has to be properly compensated with the presence of an offline store. So that is something which is very interesting and is emerging as we speak. Today, if you talk in terms of a lens card, for example, they have physical stores. Even Titanite has done that. They have been able to uh, bring their service to your doorstep. Today, through in Mintras, you must have seen through the use of technology like augmented reality, virtual reality, you are able to see yourself wearing a particular kind of garment or what kind of products that you are going to use. You can suppose you're buying a television also. I think you can use augmented reality to see how that particular television fits into your dining space, at the drawing area, the living area, wherever you want to keep it. So you have been able to curate or you create those engagement platforms which could be very very giving enriched experience for the customers to get involved. So web grooming has become a kind of a important criteria for those who are into both brick and click. And of course when you look into that, there has to be a certain um, blending, because the same feel that you have on the online should also be exhibited in the offline. So somewhere down the line, you need to keep that as a part of your brand building exercises. Looking into that, we also know how blockchain has been used. Retail today, retailers are using blockchain technology to understand the entire journey of their business model and to use technology to give faster, effective, on-time delivery to service delivery to their customers. Now, coming on to some of the other retail, stores, we have also seen the Indian market has also seen emergence of high-end retail stores, something called malls, which is beyond hypermarkets, malls and standalone. Now, when you talk about malls, it is almost like a market complex, a huge market complex, where there are small, small stores in it. Each of the stores could be the retail stores, right? So, if you see the NCR region, you talk about Gurugram, you talk about Mumbai, the malls which have come up, which have dotted the tier one cities, has taken things one notch up in terms of, as I was, if you remember, I was talking about how retail formats are today not only catering to only the utilitarian parameters of purchase. That means I'm buying a product for a particular utility. It has gone beyond that. They have gone into making this malls a kind of a place, a go-to place for most of the customers to spend time. They would like to connect with friends. They would connect with for business activities. They would like to do for many other things. So if you see in a mall, there could be so many customer engagement activities undertaken by the mall, so that they can cater to the larger crowd. But having said that, you also need to develop the real estate in a such a manner so that you are able to cater to a larger audience, as well as adhering to some of the rules and the regulations of the game. Because opening up a mall is not just putting up a marketing complex or anywhere. You have to ensure that you have a proper parking facilities, you have got proper safeties, you have concerns, you're able to look into the physically disabled people to go, and you can create those kind of structures where they can go and purchase. So it's a complete ecosystem that you are talking. Suppose in if you go to South Mall in Calcutta, They have created a complete ecosystem where customers would like, where the Gen Zs, these people who youngsters who go spend time after they go come back from the colleges or the offices, they go and hang out. Now these hangout gives them potential for doing a lot of impulse purchases. So that particular theme of creating the a recreation or feeling good or emotionally satisfying engagement, the malls have been able to need to cater to that, and they are doing it as I'm speaking to you. So the small things like, okay, giving medical facilities or taking care of the kids while they're shopping, these are very cliched parameters of sundry services that they render. But beyond that, what they look into is that how customers can spend good time out there. Apart from that, you have also got the standalone stores. Standalone stores, as we all know, they would be available. The store location would be available, something which is critical to their catchment areas. When I say catchment area, what do we know as the trading area? Let's say in Lajpat Nagar in Delhi or in Bandra, you will have to understand the people who are there inside, what kind of people. Then only you will be putting up those stores. Is a standalone store a requirement, or you need a mall? Mall you would require the higher, it require a higher space, and the investments could be significantly high. And today, if you see the standalone stores, you have to look into something called the store profitability as well, because just making your store available, the cost would significantly go up, and if you do not cater to the customers, probably the footfalls might get affected. And if you are in a league of yourself, perhaps then you will have to consider that, okay, your store is good enough for people to walk in and you can make money out of that. Look at the restaurants, the top notch restaurants which are standalone. They have to really ensure that have a good marketing strategy of not only opening up a store, but also managing the entire space or marketing them effectively, so that the customers can come and can effectively engage with them and can make their purchase and be a go-to place for most of them. So that's another challenge for most of the standalone. But while you do this, you will also have to understand that these places would have to go through certain requirements. You have to understand your target audiences who are coming to you, who are frequenting you. For example, if you are a boutique, you know you are going to get high-end customers. So you have to ensure that you are creating the right kind of environment within the store and beyond it, so that they would love coming there. So if you're a jeweler, obviously you will again the same the dynamics. They would like to have a standalone stores, but because that gives you complete access to the customers who are coming with the intention to buy. But you also have to look into what goes into engaging them. And so the investment parameters are slightly higher. In the malls, we also come across something called anchor stores, right? So anchor stores are those stores which are dominant stores, and they serve as a kind of a store which attracts most of. For example, today when you have a when Big Bazaar was there, Big Bazaar or Pantaloon is there, Pantaloon would attract even if it's in a mall, it will attract as an anchor store people to come to there. So your stores, your malls reputation is dependent on the anchor store. So when you do a mall management, you have to ensure that which kind of brands or which kind of retail outlets are you providing them. Like for example, you could have a Baskin Robbins within that, right? But why is that? So you have to ensure that the kind of people who are going there. If you're having Hurleys or a kind of footwear, you have to create that assortment width, right, within the merchandise, because people who go to the malls, they would expect variety, right? But they also look into a very favorable kind of an experience also. So all these things have to be looked into in terms of their engagement. Apart from that, malls and standalone stores need to take care of some of the most critical uh, rules which are applicable, the laws and the acts. For example, they have to ensure that their outlets are not in the forest areas. They have to see environmentally it should be safe. You have an effective drainage management system. You have effective parking system. You have good, security personnel involved. You have to ensure that you're not polluting the air. You have insufficient amount of work ensuring that the noise pollution is not happening. We are also adhering to the rules of the solid waste disposals. These are some of the sundry things which are there, but it's a very important part of their maintenance, of the management. Apart from that, you have the labor, which is a very critical part of the legal system. Because as I told you, these are there in the malls there could be small stores. So how you use your manpower, trained manpower? Are you engaging any child labor, for example? That's totally no. So those kind of things. How you're adhering to the labor laws, how you're maintaining them, are you giving them the right kind of input? If there's a women, are they getting sufficient amount of leave, like they when you go for maternity leave or paternity leave, many companies are now thinking of following standard protocols, HR protocols, and ensure it's ensured by the legal system so that you have a very effective manpower who can be engaged to give services to the end users. Now, critically, when it comes to a retail store, we look into the store management parameters. First is identifying the store location. Now, choosing the right store location is of critical importance because you should know your demographic profiles, your competition space, your environment in which you are making it available, and that is very. There's complete dedication, glad effort in understanding the store location dynamics. When you look into this, you have to also do a kind of a factor study. What factors really impact the store location identification? For example, how close are you? Accessibility. What kind of real estate costs are there? What is the proximity to various social mobility, like for example, closer to metros or closer to bus stations and all that? Those things also matter in terms of, because they have a direct relationship in terms of the location of the store. If you talk about Sarojini market in Delhi, it's a huge market complex, but it's almost like a mall. But the location, they're very conveniently located to the metros and all. So they're well connected. So obviously, when you're giving your location a preference location, looking into the kind of people who are coming to you, looking into their habits, then you will be curating something which can help to engage with them. So these are few things which one has to understand in terms of the store. So location dynamics has to understand the trading area, the primary trading area, as well as the secondary trading area. When it comes to retail chain stores, you also got to understand between two store location, what should be the minimum distance that you should be having. There's something called gravitational pull, which we talk about in terms of getting people to come to our stores. There's something called Huff's law, which you can come across, which determines that what should be the trading area in which you can. Between two stores, okay, I have one Domino's store here, then another Domino's store, what should be the distance? If it is within a hotel, well, is that good enough? Or is it something else? Or if it's an ice cream parlor, I'm having one standalone and another one is in the mall. Each of the stores have to stand on its own in terms of profitability. They have to work out their own dynamics in terms of what is the catchment area. So when it comes to store location, these parameters play a very important role. Once we have looked into the location dynamics, then we look into the store layout or the plan, the way in which it is being laid out. Because understand, when you go to any retail store, the first and foremost thing that you could be dealing with multiple merchandise, variety of merchandise. So how you get into categorizing them, how you create your planograms, how you plan to keep your products and services in a manner where the customers can easily access without feeling the pressure and without getting any kind of hindrances. It has to be seamless activity. So store locate the store layouts, which are very very critical, have to have the right kind of which we call as a traffic flow or the customer flow. When people come in, what kind of flow can be there? Now that is dependent upon the kind of merchandise that you suppose you're talking about apparel versus electronic versus groceries. The at the store layout has to be completely different. So planograms have to be in place. The people who are in charge of them have to understand what kind of people they come, what is the convenience, how would they go about, would they move in a circular fashion, would they move into a random fashion. So those are things which needs to be taken care of at the store layout stage. And further, what kind of merchandise can be placed at what location? That again is a part of the store location and store layout designs. The designs will also have signages, logos, information. For example, if you're talking about restrooms, if you've got a cafeteria, those things have to be properly. And it should be such that a person who is entering the store is often guided by the kind of signages and the communication within the store is to be should be so easy that without the help of anybody, a consumer can do it. But yes, you've got language constraints, so you have to look into translation. So that's why we have got manual intervention in terms of security people, the store staff members who help in the navigation of the retail stores. In international markets, they are huge. They are, the malls are huge. So over there, the store people who are there, as let's say in a Walmart store, Walmarts are so big, it would range from some lakhs and lakhs of square feet. So when getting that, there will be different kind of categorization, and people who are there who will help you to guide through that. If you see, you take your that particular trolley to take your products, there will be a navigation map given to you where you can go through that. And when you select through the RFID technology, you can understand how it is being, which product is being selected, whether they are being, being purchased, are they being built, and all these things, you know, ensure that the retail store layout is designed to give a better shopping experience without any access. Most of the times we have seen in India are the payment counters. Payment counters, if you put only one at the basement, it will become a problem. We understand that there is a criticality that you should not leave anybody without unbilled. But at the same time, also have to ensure that you have to create more payment outlets. Going forward, we also look into supply chain management. Supply chain management is one part of your merchandise and planning, where you're trying to see where you're getting your inputs from, how you're going to stock them, how you're going to forward it to the other consumption points, so that the people who are coming are able to cater to that in the quantity that they desire or they want. So it talks about where would you get it, where would you store it, where would the warehouse be, what kind of it's got some kind of it has importance in terms of merchandise planning as well. When you talk about merchandising, we look at it integrates into the supply chain. So where you get it from, where you store it from, where it needs to be further taken up. You may have a hub and spoke kind of a thing where you have warehouses which could sufficiently give rise to, you have got certain levels of inventory levels which can cater to the high demand stores. So what kind of replenishment of stocks have to be maintained? This is something with the supply chain people who are in the logistics have to ensure there's a efficient movement of products and services to satisfy the customers to the according to the requirements. So you have got, if you are getting from raw materials, if you're a cafeteria, obviously raw materials will be procuring the vegetables or whatever it is. Manufacturing, I mean, you're making it into products and then making it available to the customers and to the satisfaction. So you have to maintain inventory, you have to manage it, you have to ensure that there is a smooth flow right from input till the time it gets consumed by the end user. Going forward, if you look into merchandising is something what is the major uh, concern for which the companies are coming. So you have to understand by the type of customers who are visiting your stores, and sufficient inventory levels have to be maintained, and you have to understand what is the profile of your customer who is wanting. I will give you the example of Bata versus Hush Puppies. The Hush Puppies outlet has to ensure that it's a premium brand. So they have to ensure that the look of the space and the kind of inventory levels that they have to have should be enticing for a high-end customer to come and buy. Value-based customers, the footfalls could be high, but you need lesser amount of minimal or amount of merchandise. Whereas in case of other cases, they would look for more variety. So you should be able to maintain satisfactory inventory levels, or effective, I would say, optimal inventory levels to cater to the uh, market requirements. You must also understand that in terms of merchandising, retail outlets should also looks into what we call as a private label brands. Private label brands are brands which are owned by retailers. Because in case of merchandising, we also look into vendor management. Because you get materials from your vendors, these vendors are sometimes are non-entities. So what the retailers do, they brand in their own name, they give it a name and put it into their outlets, so that a customer gets to evaluate both the branded as well as private label brands of the retailers' own brands. Let's say in the apparel section or in the grocery section, and they give sufficient amount of space in the aisles in the display units, so that we are giving more opportunities for people to sometimes they also push the trade. So this is a kind of also a challenge to the branded labels, how to fight off the private label brands at the retail counters. So that is some, because when it comes to operating in the store, obviously the retailer would like to give more space to their own private label brands compared to, let's say, manufacturer brands. If I'm manufacturing, let's say I'm a footwear kind of a retailer, I'm having my own private label brands. I also have other branded stuff. So I will definitely fill my product assortment in terms of display, the visual display that we have, in terms of merchandising. I would give prominent places to the private label brands and maybe larger numbers, so that that attracts more attention than the other brands. So it is a kind of a dicey situation, but then marketers have to understand this, that private label brands should not encroach into their sales, otherwise their market shares could get very severely affected. So going forward, if you look into the retail store operations, we have to look into how the operation has to ensure that the merchandising is done effectively. Products which are coming, they are flown into they are leaving the scales or the shelf spaces effectively managed and being purchased. There should not be, they follow LIFO, FIFO, whatever the standard procedures are, to ensure that the products which are brought in, they go through a very seamless kind of a trajectory. When you come in, you stock the goods, you sell off the shelf, and then it gets replenished. So there has to be standard operating procedures which have to be in place, so that you can ensure that there is zero inventory in your warehouses, and you are also able to achieve your market shares, right? And going forward, you need to have sufficient manpower to take care of the entire store operations, right from your SCM to merchandising to the store operations to store promotions. In-store promotions are there. So how will you manage that? These are some of the responsibilities have to encompass for the manpower to engage with the customers effectively and sufficiently, so that the customers do get entertained, do also feel good, also feel privileged, also feel valued while they are making purchase decisions. So that brings us to the end of today's session. I hope you have certain things to look back at your course curriculum. If you can go, we have followed the parameters. Next, we will move into the third unit as we in the next class, which we talks about the retail environment. Thank you.